I'm David Scales. I'm a physician at Cambridge Health Alliance and Harvard Medical School and a special correspondent for WBUR. I received a Pulitzer grant to report on France's new national plan to combat Lyme and tick-borne diseases and to try to understand what France is doing differently to win the war against Lyme disease. Lyme is a bacteria. It's called Borrelia burgdorferi, and it's spread by deer ticks that you can pick up in certain parts of the United States and France just by hiking in the woods or spending time in your garden, like this one. I got interested in this topic because at WBUR we did a series on Lyme disease to understand how Lyme disease is spreading in Massachusetts and what local and state governments are doing to try to stem the tide. And it was sobering to realize that Lyme disease is being found in more places in Massachusetts, and the ticks are being found in more places in Massachusetts, and yet there's very little from the state or local governments that's really effectively stemming the tide of the disease. And this is in the face of a controversy where infectious disease doctors would say that Lyme is a nuisance, but it's not particularly difficult to treat. But patients, a lot of whom are suffering and have had chronic debilitating illnesses that they believe are caused by what they call chronic Lyme disease, believe it's a crisis. And so it's a crisis here in Massachusetts, and it's a crisis in France. So France is interesting. They released their national plan to combat Lyme disease last September. And they have a couple components to it that I went to investigate. And I investigated what the public health program is doing, and they're doing a lot of different aspects of prevention and research to try to understand where ticks are, how the ticks are spreading, and how to best educate people about the disease. I mean, they have education programs online, on the radio, some television releases that have come out, and a number of posters and teaching physicians. So they're blanketing the country with education right now. And they have a new treatment program. I went to the city of Nancy in the northeast region where they have a hospital program that brings patients with these chronic symptoms that they believe are attributed to this chronic Lyme disease, and bring them in for a hospital day of treatment where they spend the day in the hospital seeing all the specialists and getting all the tests that they need to get started on a treatment, to try to streamline the process of seeing multiple specialists over time, which is something that can be very frustrating, especially for people with chronic illnesses. And lastly, I went to Strasbourg to visit the National Center for Borrelia Research, where they're trying to innovate on doing Lyme disease tests and try to improve the testing. One of the controversies in Lyme disease is over even the diagnosis, which is very controversial. A lot of people claim that the traditional way to diagnose it is not very accurate and are trying to find better tests. There's a lot of controversy over treatment as well. So while France is doing a lot of different things from a lot of different sides on prevention and trying to figure out better ways to treat the disease, which I was encouraged by, there's still a lot to go in terms of making the plan effective and seeing whether or not over time the plan is going to have any impact.